Hunting or Bust: The Journey Onward by Master Atlan, Chapter 26, Iron Blood. Tendon was knocked back with incredible force, and a small yelp escaped her lips as she tried to right herself in the air. She had a rough landing and skid along the floor before coming to a halt. She concentrated, creating several throwing knives in her hand from her steel semblance, and wiped her arm up to throw them with surprising precision. But it was all for naught as her opponent knocked them aside with almost no effort at all. Figures. Tendon created a pair of short swords without hilts along her arms inside her sleeves before letting them slide into her hands. She still liked to keep up the image that these were all hidden weapons somewhere in her clothes. It kept people guessing and made her look cool. She wasn't sure why she did it right now, considering her opponent already knew about her steel semblance, but whatever. The bunny-haired girl gave a quick yell and sprung to her feet before charging at her opponent. She saw her get into a battle stance and then pulled her arm back to gain more room to swing. She swung up and struck one weapon into the shield with a resounding thud before being pushed back by the shield. She used the movement to turn and strike with her other sword, but her opponent riposted her, parrying the short blade before spinning and slamming her shield into Tenten's chest. Her aura protected her, but Tenten was still stumbling back after being widened by the rough attack. Tenten found her footing before twisting around and throwing the blades out to catch her opponent off guard, but it was pointless as her opponent jumped and spun between the blades to dodge before using her twisting momentum to spike her shield into Tenten's legs and knocking her to the ground as the shield returned to her hand. Tenten groaned and let the stinging faint tingle through her legs fade before looking up at her adversary. Pyrrha stood a few feet away and over her opponent, and even though Tenten was on the ground, the redhead didn't drop her guard for an instant. Her gaze was focused as she held up her arm and let the shield snap back over her arm. She was like an indomitable wall, a force of nature. Every time she made a move, Pyrrha was already moving in a way to dodge and counter perfectly, and somehow the throwing knives and skills she had so much belief in always missed or diverted away from her target before landing. That name wasn't for show. Pyrrha really was an invincible girl, the best of this generation. She didn't get the cover on Pumpkin Pete's for nothing. Tenten clicked her teeth before keeping one hand under her clothes to keep out of Pyrrha's sight. As several knives slipped between her fingers, she vaulted off the ground and threw the knives out to distract the Amazon as she changed the aura around her and legs into steel. Pyrrha remained calm and shifted Milo into its sword form and swatted the knives away in one fluid movement. The projectiles clattered on the ground, and Pyrrha used that moment to spot Tenten trying to get some distance between them. It wasn't going to work. Pyrrha dashed forward and cleared the distance between them in an instant. She pulled Milo back and thrust her blade forward to catch Tenten's shoulder, but was averted when Tenten held her hand out and the 2 points scraped against each other like steel. Pyrrha was surprised for an instant until she composed herself and noticed that Tenten had covered her hands in metal. Tenten clenched her metal-coated fist and started throwing punches that bounced off of Pyrrha's shield as she blocked them. The warrior would drop her guard and bring her blade out from her side to sweep at Tenten, but the brunette countered each swing with her palm. The two ladies exchanged a quick flurry of strikes and countered to hit the other. Tenten fairly less well trying to protect herself while Pyrrha persisted forward. Pyrrha spun on her feet and extended her sword into a javelin before trying to sweep Tenten's legs, but the bunny-haired girl raised her legs and let the two metals clash before the redhead spun in on the other direction. Tenten brought her other leg up and let the spar bounce off her shin before extending her leg and catching the shaft of the javelin under her foot. She forced it down and pinned the javelin to the ground, causing Pyrrha to lurch forward from the sudden movement. Tenten turned on the end of the weapon to land a spin kick on Pyrrha's exposed head, but the champion activated the jet on the end of Milo and jerked the javelin forward. The sudden force knocked Tenten off her feet and flung her forward before she flipped and landed on the ground, only to get attacked again when Pyrrha charged forward and slammed her shield squarely in Tenten's chest. Tenten was winded and felt her aura surge from the attack as she was sent tumbling back. She landed on her butt and stumbled back up to her feet as Pyrrha came running at her to finish the fight. Tenten shifted the metal over one hand into a knife that she quickly tossed and that bounced off of Akuos harmlessly. She dashed forward, catching the knife out of the air before swiping at Pyrrha and making her duck. Tenten followed through with the movement, spinning in the air and kicking Milo out of her hands before landing and throwing out a jab to to strike Pyrrha with her steel hand. The redhead narrowed her eyes at the fist sailing forward to strike her and quickly raised her hand to block it. Tenten's punch seemed to slow down and diverge to the side, completely missing Pyrrha altogether and pulling Tenten off her feet. Pyrrha slammed Aqua into the blonde-haired girl's chin, causing her to stumble back as the redhead kicked her spear back into her hand. She spun around and swiped Tenten's legs out from under her before bringing it back down on Tenten's head, knocking her flat into the floor as the tone echoed and indicated the aura bar was in the red. Pyrrha was still in the green without any noticeable differences in the bar. Tenten had fallen dangerously into the red. The lights turned back on, and Glinda came walking back out onto the stage. The blonde professor nodded to Pyrrha and voiced how impressive the young woman's fighting had been. Excellent showing once again, Miss Nikos. Pyrrha graciously nodded to the teacher. Thank you, Professor. Glinda nodded back and then turned to Tenten as she groggily pushed herself up to her feet. You had a fine showing as well, Miss Tamura. You have definitely improved since your first sparring match. However, I would suggest you take some time to develop a tactic or a strategy to execute before coming into a fight. You show quite a level of adaptability, but as this match has shown, that can only take you so far in a fight. Tenten gingerly rubbed the crick in her neck and gave a small laugh. Don't need to tell me twice. Glinda stepped forward and addressed the whole amphitheater. Okay, students, I believe that will be enough for now. I'll let you out a little early today. There was a resounding cheer and clap from the students before the blonde teacher whipped her riding crop and shut them up immediately. The students flinched and gave their undivided attention to the no-nonsense teacher. However, I would like to remind you that at the beginning of class next Monday, you'll be turning in your essays. If you don't have them, then have them when you walk into the amphitheater. They will officially be late. The cheer the students had a moment ago disappeared with a warning of looming homework before she walked off stage. You are dismissed. As the students talked and their words filled together into the huge mumble, Pyrrha quickly came to Tenten's side with around her face. I'm sorry about that, Tenten. I think I got a little too forceful with the fight. It's cool. The brunette smiled and tried to relieve her friend of any guilt as she rubbed her neck. I just got a little case of whiplash, but I'm totally fine. She tapped her neck a little before asking, how did you sweep my leg and then smack me into the floor? Pyrrha shamefully nodded her head. Yes. Okay, so I didn't imagine that happening. Tenten mumbled defeatedly before smiling. Oh well, I guess I still got a ways to go before I reach your level. Pyrrha holstered her shield and sword while shaking her head. No, not at all. You were fantastic. The way you switch between weapons is staggering, and the addition of physical strikes into your pattern is very innovative. You were amazing. Thanks. Tenten let out an unconvinced chuckle as she finally felt her neck relax and shrugged. But I still don't measure up to you at all. The brunette seemed disappointed for a moment before sighing. Well, you're like the best fighter in our class, so I guess doing this well is still pretty awesome. Pyrrha looked saddened by Tenten's words before the bun-haired girl smiled and walked toward the exit. Come on, the others are probably waiting for us, and I could use something to eat after that fight. Tenten headed towards the lockers to change, and Pyrrha stayed behind, frozen on the stage as everyone else headed out to their next location. The redhead's eyes softened as she seemed crestfallen by what her friend had said. She wanted to tell Tenten otherwise, that she wasn't that great, that she had done a spectacular job fighting like that. But once again, her tongue felt tied. Her argument died in her mouth before it could even be heard, and she had received a praise she didn't feel like she deserved, but she had no right to argue it, because that would be spitting in the face of every person that had helped her get to this point along the way. Pyrrha, alone on stage and the last to leave the room, gave a sigh of reservation before following after Tenten to meet with their friends. Hunting. That was an awesome fight, you two. Yang complimented the two ladies as they were digging into their meals. Tenten and Pyrrha were both honored by Yang's praise as Ruby gushed over the battle, the red and black-haired girl bounced in her seat with excitement. You two were so cool. Tenten, all those knives and swords and stuff you made were amazing. And Pyrrha, when you swish between your forms so quickly and fight with them, ooh, so cool. Ruby, you're drooling. She immediately wiped her mouth. Sorry. Kiba looked towards the redhead amazed and asked, so you think by the time the festival tournament comes around, you'll have it in the bag? Pyrrha gave a small smile and shook her head. Not at all. I'll do my best when the time comes, but it's silly to think I will just win against any opponent so easily. Kiba nodded in agreement. That's good. This world is huge, and it's filled with weird, strong people. Tenten shrugged. Yeah, but Pyrrha's a world-renowned fighter. That's got to make a few people around Remnant pretty wary. Oh, but have you guys heard about all the people that are going to be in the festival? Nora excitedly stated as the ginger girl looked up in thought and started counting off her fingers. I heard Mistra has a bunch of super strong new teams coming in this year. Oh, and I heard Atlas has a super secret weapon that's gonna get them ahead of everyone else this year. Weiss proudly hummed. No surprise there. It is the most technologically advanced and growing kingdom in the world. Don't be surprised if that secret weapon puts everyone to shame. Bet they'll just put clothes on the robot units and pass them off as students. Oh, but get this. Nora leaned over the table like she was telling a secret and whispered to them, I heard there's a real strong guy out in Vacuo that's a shoe-in to win the tournament. Apparently, he can move dirt. The others looked between each other in confusion. They were expecting something a lot more impressive from the energetic girl than just moving dirt. Naruto quirked his brow. You sure there isn't anything else to that rumor, Nora? She tilted her head. What do you mean? He means that moving dirt isn't exactly a great breaking achievement for being strong. Rainy cleared up. Nora realized what they meant and shrugged. Oh, well, yeah, when you think about it like that, then it's not all that impressive. But do you guys have any idea how much dirt there is in the world? A lot. Also, I think the actual thing I heard was there was a guy who could move the ground beneath us and change the shifting sands to his will. But moving dirt is way easier to remember. Okay, Ruby smiled and looked around again. Well, whatever super strong team robot with wigs or some guy with dirt comes at us, we'll show him how Team Ruby is the best, most awesome team this year. Right, guys? Yang cheered. Right, sis. Blake and Weiss just sat there silently as they didn't wish to boast as much as their partners. Ruby and Yang shared a look before reaching over and pushing their respective partners' arms up to cheer as well. Ruby groaned. Yeah, Team Ruby. And second best. They quickly turned to Naruto and Kiba as the boys sat back in their seats smugly. The two boys shared a look before sitting in their seats properly as the tattooed boy shrugged. Yeah, I mean, you guys are super tough and cool and everything, but only one team is going to win the tournament. Naruto nodded, and that's going to be us. Count on that. Ruby gave a cheeky smirk and raised her eyebrow. Oh, is that a challenge? That's a guarantee. Naruto boasted. We've got a metal woman, a rabid psycho. You've seen what I've gotten back up from. You can see what I've gotten back up from. And Sasuke, the guy that fought Pyrrha to a draw. And we ain't giving up until we win the Vital Festival tournament. Count on that. Yang chuckled. Aw, it's cute watching idiots dream. These idiots are going all the way to victory, Kiba smiled. And don't think we'll be going easy on you when we cross paths. Ho ho! Ruby stood up and pointed at Naruto and Kiba challengingly. But it will be you that we do not go easy on when we fight each other in the tournament. Bring it. That's enough. Weiss yanked on Ruby's hood to pull her back down into her seat. The hooded girl gave a hoarse cough before the hairs dryly stared between her and the others. How about instead of provoking each other and making baseless proclamations, you all focus on getting better for when the tournament actually comes around, huh? Geez, can't have any fun, can you? Take a joke, Weiss. Lighten up, Ice Queen. There it is again. Stop calling me. Weiss quietly seething and took a deep breath and through her nose before standing up from her seat. I'm going to go to our room. I'm tired and I'm calling it a day. Me too. Blake closed her book and stood up alongside the princess before stifling a small yawn. She nodded in agreement with the ivory-haired girl. I'm tired as well. She and Weiss started making their way back to the room before Yang and Ruby started following after. The blonde called out, Hey, don't go leaving us so quickly. Hold on, Ruby called out before waving the good night to Noctix and Juniper. Bye guys, see you tomorrow. They waved the all-female team goodnight before the short, energetic Nora stretched her arms out and yawned as well. She smacked her lips a little with hazy eyes. I'm sleepy too. I think I'm gonna head back to the dorm. I should as well, Ray noted as he stood up to join his friend. I need to make sure you don't fall asleep in the hallway on the way there again. Oh, come on, Ren. She bashfully giggled and waved off his concern. Just because that happened 2 or 3 or 7 times doesn't mean I'm gonna do it again. She punched his shoulders and laughed. Silly. Well, best to come along to make sure, Ren stated before nodding goodbye to everyone as Nora gleefully waved them goodbye. Pyrrha looked at her partner and motioned towards their teammates. I'm just going to finish my meal. You can go to the room as well if you want. John shook his head. Nah, it's okay. I can wait. He shrugged with a goofy smile. I mean, considering all the junk you stick around for with me, then it's no problem. Just to sit around and relax while eating. Aw, ain't you a sweet lady killer? And Kiba joked before spinning out of his seat and scratching his head. I'm done. I'll see you guys back in the room later. Sasuke looked over his teammates to see his partner still had to finish her meal, and his leader had gotten a second course for himself. He stood out of his seat and pointed to the exit. Hey, I'm heading back too. You two gonna be all right? Tenten nodded and waved him off. Yeah, get going already. We'll be back to you soon. And Naruto mumbled with his mouth full of pasta and meat. Yeah, we'll make sure you don't take so long this time to finish, Sasuke answered back. John blinked in surprise. Can you understand him? No, but it saves time just remembering what he does wrong and telling him to fix it. He waved the group of four away before leaving the cafeteria altogether. John looked back over and saw Pyrrha and Tenten quietly enjoying their light meals as Naruto basically breathed his food in like it was air. It was actually kind of amazing how he gorged on food like that. It was also very nauseating. Ignoring his bandana-wearing friend's manners, John Spear looked over at his partner and contemplated the things the others said about the tournament. Strong people from every corner and part of the world, some that would even possibly outdo Pyrrha. That was an almost staggering thought. He just couldn't believe him. Pyrrha was just the most amazing fighter and person he had ever met. She could fight anyone and had won against every opponent she was pitted against. He was constantly surrounded by powerful and amazing people, and they always talked about just how awesome she was. The only fight she hadn't won was a draw against Sasuke in the first week, and he remembered asking the Uchiha once if he could win against the invincible girl. I only did as good as I did because I've got a lot of experience fighting people who were stronger than me. If we fought again, then I could land some good hits on her, but I'm not sure I could win against Pyrrha. It was when people said things like that that made John seriously wonder if Osman had been sick or confused when he appointed him as leader. And people just like that who were going to come from everywhere to fight here in a tournament. Before he could even think about it, John had already put his thoughts into words. What's that festival tournament like? Pyrrha paused from eating her meal and turned to properly face her partner. What do you mean, John? Haven't you seen the Vital Festival tournament before? John meekly looked aside and shrugged. Well, I sometimes watch the fights on TV with my family, but we were always more focused on the bigger culture side the festival had, buying things from all over the world and selling stuff to people that come from the other kingdoms, but I really don't know much about the fights. Oh well, it's amazing. Easily the best part of the whole festival, Tenden excitedly pointed out, and she gave a giddy grin and thought. As the last big event of the Vital Festival, dozens or even hundreds of teams came from each of the 100 schools and applied to participate in it. Beacon, Haven, Shade, and Atlas all get to show the best fighters and students they've got to the whole world. And John gulped in surprise. The whole world? The tournament is broadcast in real time over the whole world, Pyrrha pointed out and noticed the pale look on John's face. Immediately realizing that the idea of global attention was probably a bit overwhelming for the awkward teen, she held her hand up to try and calm his nerves. But it does a lot of good in helping people have hope around the world. Seeing the next generation of huntsmen and huntresses showing their skills in battle puts relief in the population's mind that they will be properly protected in the future. Also, the tournament is a wonderful chance for students to see the faculties of other kingdoms and help them decide whether they would like to work in the future. John's pounding heart seemed to slow down a little at Pyrrha's reassurance as he took a calming breath. He looked at the red-haired warrior with uncertainty. So that region tournament you fought in while you were still at Mistral, is that sort of like the tournament the festival has? Pyrrha gave an ambiguous hum and roll of her shoulders. Well, yes and no. Tenten sat up and answered the blonde's question. They're the same in the regard that they're both tournaments, and you can watch them both on TV and online, but well, Naruto, chew and swallow. Naruto gulped down his mouthful inside. Sorry, but they're different basically on the scale of tournament size and worldwide attention. The Mistral region tournament is very well known, but it has the most interest and effect in the kingdoms itself. And people all over Mistral will watch the students in training and other gifted fighters battle it out, but people all over the world watch the Vital Festival tournament. John, Tenten, and Pyrrha just looked at Naruto in mild surprise as they blinked in unison. Naruto shrugged. I lived in Mistral. I watched those fights growing up all the time. Pyrrha nodded. He's right. It is sort of like comparing a local sports league to a professional league. They're similar but very different. Also, the Mistral Regional Tournament focuses on single-fighter battles and advancements, while the Vital Festival Tournament shows off the teamwork and bonds teams have made during training. That's why teams need to register together if they want to participate in the fight. John seemed shocked and a little panicked by the idea before Pyrrha calmly stated, But we don't need to worry about that. John, if you don't want to enter in the tournament, I'll understand. We can convince Nora and Ren that we don't... No. And John cut her off and vividly shook his head. It's a lot to take in, but I'm ready to join that fight if you guys are, so don't worry about me. He seemed to mull over what he said before unconvincingly muttering, I'll be fine in the fight. Pyrrha looked at her partner in worry before nodding her head reluctantly. If you're sure. He gave a small nod and she returned it as well before giving a cheerful smile. Alright then. Then Team Juniper will be entering the Vital Festival tournament. Tenten bounced in her seat a little before turning to her leader for confirmation. We're going to join in too, right? Naruto gave her a skeptical look that just questioned why she even bothered to ask as she pumped her fist. Yes! Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Pyrrha and Tenten both nodded and laughed with some excitement as John looked like something heavy had kicked him in the butt. Naruto looked down at his meal for a moment and fiddled with the last of the pasta and sauce on his plate before speaking up. Hey, Pyrrha. The warrior looked up when she realized she was being addressed as the blonde seemed conflicted about something. He stilled himself up before asking, what was Sanctum like? Sanctum? The redhead blinked and seemed confused by his question before giving an uncertain tilt of her head. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Sanctum is like any other training school in the kingdoms. I know, but I want to hear what you thought about Sanctum while you were there. Pyrrha contemplated what he was asking and placed her hand on her cheek in thought. She opened her eyes again and gave a small jerk of her shoulders. Well, Sanctum was always very pristine, like someone woke up early every morning and scrubbed the halls down from top to bottom with soap. There were so many strong students, and each of the teachers were accomplished hunters that had so much to offer. A fond smile came over Pyrrha's face as she remembered her first walking through the halls of that training school. It was a bit overwhelming and frightening at first, but it was still very exciting. John and Naruto listened to her with their full attention as Tenten nodded in agreement. She went to one of the other training schools in Mithril, but she remembered it being so much different from the learning schools they went to growing up. The moment she decided to train to become a huntress, she got to experience a very different side of life. It was weird and harder, but it was so much more exhilarating and romantic and amazing. And that was when she got to appreciate the Mithril Regional Tournament in a whole new light. And then the regional tournament came around and things became very hectic. They started putting us through vigorous testing trials before we could apply for the tournament brackets. I didn't get through the test the first time I tried, Tenten pointed out sheepishly as she scratched her cheek. I did the following years, but I could never get further past the first round because the other people were just so good. Yes, the tournament was filled with extraordinary individuals and fighters I had never seen before. I didn't think I could win at all when I entered my first tournament, but somehow I won. The modest smile grew as Redhead remembered the feeling when she was younger and won her first tournament. There were a lot of congratulations and thanks. It was incredible when people thought I could be something great because I won the fight as so young. John shrugged and smiled. Well, maybe they just knew great talent when they saw it. Tenten nodded in agreement. Yeah, I mean, you went on to win the next 3 tournaments flawlessly. They must have realized just how great you were gonna be. Pyrrha's shoulders slumped a little, and she gave an agreeable but hesitant laugh. Yes, I suppose you're right. The first time she won the tournament was one of the biggest and proudest moments of her life. She felt like she could accomplish just about anything if she put her mind to it, and when she tried, she could do just about anything. Along the way, people continued to praise her and believe she was a prodigy. She kept getting better, and the people around her kept getting further away. She spent classes mostly working by herself, and as she got older, the spars she fought in got shorter as people just surrendered halfway through. She lost more and more friends until she could barely remember a time when she talked simply with friends and not people begging for tips and autographs. She started getting professional attention and stopped being treated just as a student. It was the start of the Invincible Girl's career, and the start of the barrier she was building around herself. To be completely honest, Pyrrha muttered below her breath in a crestfallen manner, I have a hard time remembering how nice Sanctum was when I first arrived. John blinked and turned to her again. Huh, did you say something, Pyrrha? Nothing. She smiled before collecting her utensils and plate and started heading towards the dish disposal. I'm finished. Let's head back, John. She gave a quick nod to Tenten and Naruto. See you tomorrow, you two. Bye, guys. John followed after his partner. Tenten waved them off before looking over to see Naruto looking down at his dirty plate in silence. She was going to ask what was wrong before he gave her an immediate answer. Do you remember that thing Kiba asked us about a few days ago? The brown bun girl tilted her head in thought before giving a slight nod. Yeah. Wait, are you talking about what we would do if we couldn't be hunters? He hummed affirmatively as she asked. Why do you ask? I was just thinking instead, what made us want to be huntsmen and huntresses in the first place? Tintin blinked in surprise at the blonde's question as a small smile came over his face. I decided I wanted to be a huntsman when I was a kid. I remember all the bedtime stories I heard about heroes who saved hundreds of people all the time because they thought it was the right thing to do, and I remember thinking how amazing and great they must be. So I thought I could do a lot to help people if I tried. So I wanted to maybe become a huntsman one day. And now that I might become one, I don't know. I was just thinking about how I got here. Naruto stayed silent and kept looking down at his food before vigorously shaking his head until it was just a blur. His eyes whirled around in their sockets and he laughed. Well, I'm all deep thought and brooding for some reason. I think I've been sitting next to Sasuke, Ren, and Blake too much. I should by Nora tomorrow so I could absorb some of the boundless energy she exudes. He happily picked up his silverware and threw one last fry in his mouth before heading out. Come on, Tenten. As her friend headed towards the drop-off, Tintin kept still in her seat and furrowed her brow in thought. Why she decided to become a huntress? Hunting. It was night now, and mostly everyone had dozed off into dreamland. The stragglers had nodded off, and the dorms were silent. The only person that was still awake and resting in her bed in vain was Tenten, and it wasn't even because of Naruto's snoring or Kiba's incessant turning. She had grown accustomed to their habits. Her mind was just Titan sighed in frustration and pouted before flipping her cover off of her form, moving her unbound hair out of her eyes for a better view. She leaned over and reached under her bed before pulling out a black and slightly worn-out notebook. The girl in the baggy pants and t-shirt picked up her scroll before carefully tiptoeing out of the room. Titan quietly shut the door behind her and then stepped to the side before sliding down the wall and getting comfortable in her sitting spot. She turned the light off her scroll on and started flipping through the pages of her notebook as a nostalgic smile came over her face. First design, shotgun axe that fires smaller axes. Evectivist against Grim, 100 points. Tintin giggled amusingly at her childish handwriting and poorly drawn diagram of her as a stick figure with a massive weapon in her hand. She turned through a few dozen pages to reach other designs she had thought of. Dual batons that connected into double-barrel shotguns. Utilize fire rounds, ice rounds, lightning rounds, lava rounds, gravity rounds, wind rounds, etc. Oh, that caused a bit of destruction when she tried making that before getting into training school. Mom and Dad were so ticked off with her. On the brighter side, she had learned to draw a hell of a lot better. She flipped the page again. Ball and chain with customized dust enhancements, capable of covering itself in ice dust to change size and shape, fire dust to increase destructive potential, lightning dust. She wasn't even sure how she was going to make that one work. It sounded nice in theory, but it was impossible to create a trigger along the chain to activate certain dust types, which meant she had to bring the steel ball back into her hand to switch the dust, and that was just inconvenient. She was probably just trying to clear her head when she created this idea. This was around the time Tenten Tenten yelled and slammed her notebook shut before looking up to see Sasuke poking his head out from their door. She let out a long exhale and calmed herself down. Hey Sasuke, what are you doing up? I didn't wake you, did I? I heard you walking by and I thought something might be wrong. He noticed the notebook in her lap and raised his brow in intrigue. What is that? This, she lifted it up and gave a nervous chuckle. This is just an old design book. I doodled a bunch of old weapon schematics and ideas down in it when I was still trying to make my own weapon. She waved it around harmlessly. When I can't sleep, I sometimes like to look through it again and see if any strokes of genius hit. Can I see it? Tintin handed her partner the notebook and scooted over as he slid down to sit next to her. She was going to offer a light, but he activated his semblance and started reading in the dark without issue. He moved through a few pages before he nodded in surprise. Wow, Tintin, you have so many good ideas in here for great weapons. Tintin rolled her eyes and scoffed. Pfft. Great. She took the book back and flipped some pages before pointing at one in particular. I wanted to make an amusement park that doubled as weapons and tactical attack vehicles. Making a carousel that released columns of fire in every direction is not a great idea. Sasuke shrugged. Okay, yeah, maybe that idea was a bit far-fetched, but you were a kid when you thought of it. He assumed by the crayons and doodles of unicorns in the margins. He poked the notebook to try and encourage his dejected partner. But some of those are actually very powerful and useful. In theory, Tenten pointed out before putting the notebook in her lap and sighing. I tried making all of these weapons when I could, but they were either too big or inconvenient or explosive. Oh, Sasuke said before he looked around at the empty hallway before inquiring. So, why are you sitting out here by yourself? The brunette girl's shoulders slumped in disappointment and gave an uncertain shrug. I was thinking that even though I've been at Beacon for a while now, I haven't really gotten any better. Sasuke opened his mouth to dispute that, but she held up her hand. Don't try to dissuade me. I'm pretty stuck in that mindset right now. Her partner shook his head. Well, maybe you've been too busy taking care of all of us to notice just how much better you've been getting. Even Goodwitch thought you had improved, and you've definitely been getting faster with molding your weapons from your semblance. A chipper smile came over Tenten's face at his praise before nodding. Maybe. A more conflicted and serious expression took its place. But I came to Beacon so I could become better and one day be a huntress, and I really don't feel like I'm making any progress towards that goal. She gripped the edge of her notebook tightly and held it up. Even if Pyrrha is an invincible fighter, I can't just give up and accept that. A hunter's life is filled with impossible challenges and hardships. If I don't even attempt to evolve with this wall in my way, I might as well give up. Sasuke looked at his partner thoughtfully before asking, So, what are you going to do about it? I need to do the impossible. I need to do something I've never been able to do. Tenten held the notebook up in front of her as a smirk started forming on her face. I'm finally gonna make a weapon for myself. Extra. It's not what you think. Tenten, Kiba, and Sasuke walked back into the room as the tattooed boy shook his head and laughed derisively. Okay, I don't care what you say or what proof you think you can offer us. No one is cooler than the movies than Bruce Willis. The dude kills hundreds of grim and bad guys as he uses the freaking fire from bombs to light cigarettes. What's cooler than that? Tenten shook her head in disappointment. Oh, he who appreciates so little. Michael Brassbender is one of the finest actors in the whole world. He's nuanced, he's powerful. He can play a damn deranged xenophobic madman and make it one of the best characters in recent movie history. All Bruce Willis does is make cheap one-liners. Hey, that's the best one-liners in history, and don't you forget it. Kiba passionately stated before sighing and rubbing the bridge of his nose. Okay, can we at least agree, Licorice DiCaprio and Jamio L. Saxon are awesome? Oh, no question. Tenten nodded before looking around and noticing someone was missing. Wait, where's Naruto? He said he's back in the room. Sasuke looked around. Naruto? I'm in here. Naruto called out from the bathroom as his voice seemed panicked and worried. Just give me a minute. In the middle of something. Kiba fell into his bed. What are you doing in there? Nothing. Don't ask. Don't worry. Don't come in. Tenten lightly knocked on the door. Naruto, I really need to go to the bathroom. I've been holding it in all day, and I think I'm gonna burst. Give me a minute. I really can't. Tenten was bouncing on her feet and grabbed the doorknob. And since I don't hear anything in there, I know you aren't using it. I can't wait anymore. Wait, don't come in. If your pants are around your ankles, then you better pull them up. Tenten barged in. No. Ah! Tenten screamed and stumbled back as she covered her mouth in shock. Kiba and Sasuke sat up in their beds in worry before they heard Tenten stifle a laugh as tears came into her eyes. They looked towards the bathroom, and watching Naruto emerge with an amused look as he wore a familiar blue PJs onesie with his bandana. Sasuke's lips curved into a smile. Kiba's face turned red from the strain. Naruto sighed and grabbed the collar of the PJs. I borrowed them from John. I just really want to see why he liked them so much. I thought I could try them out before you guys got back. Click. They looked over and saw Kiba typing away on his scroll. Naruto's eyes widened. Kiba, you better not. Done. Ding. All the scrolls vibrated as they received the same message, and they heard similar rings to the walls as well. Nora, he's like a big fluffy bunny. Ren, oh wow. Pyrrha, John, don't laugh. They're better than they look. Ruby, he's so fluffy. Yang, oh god, thank you. Blake, I need to send this to Velvet. Weiss, finally, payback. Vengeance shall be Weiss's sneeze. Naruto's eyes went dark in fright as his arms lowered sadly as he realized he was screwed. How do those feel actually? Really good, like I'm wearing a big soft cloud. End of chapter 26.